Hello everyone, welcome to the session of application development using Python programming. So the subject code is 18CS55. So today let's start with the course objectives of this subject. So in this course, you will be learning the syntax and semantics of conceptuals of Python programming, and you will also be learning the process of the structuring the data using list, tuples and dictionary. You will also be learning some built-in functions related to file system, pattern matching with regular expression, and one concept of class and objects and inheritance will also be learned as an object-oriented part of Python programming. And in the last module, you will be learning about how to work with Excel, PDF, Word, and other types of file systems. So as per the syllabus, the textbooks that we are going to refer is by Swigart, automate the boring stuff with Python. And one more textbook that should be referred to your syllabus is Think Python, how to think like a computer scientist. So what will be the course outcomes? At the end of this course, you will be able to know how to implement the flow control statements. It may be looping constructs, it may be the manipulation of the list data structures like list, tuples and dictionaries. You will also be learning how to deal with regular expressions with respect to pattern matching and other things. You will also be learning about the web scraping, so that you can also work on some real-time projects to learn about the web scraping from the websites, which is a legal way of accessing the raw data information from the websites, and whichever the type of formats it might be, CSV format, JSON or script, any type of scripting format, you will be able to scrape through the websites, and this will be the outcome of the course that you will be learning at this. So now let's take up the first module, the basics of Python programming language. Here you will be learning about the data types, the conceptuals like loops, flow control statements, the operators, and many more as such. And I think by now you will be able to know how to implement or install Python programming language. You can download it from the website called python.org, or if you have something, if you are working on Windows platform, you have a Microsoft store, you can download the Python application from there. So once you download it, it will be easier for anyone to install the software, and you can install this software in any of the folder and customize it by setting up the environment variables. And the one very important thing where we will be working in Python programming language is the Python developer, the Python community. The Python itself is having one IDE, that is Integrated Development Environment. That IDE is called IDLE. So as per the syllabus, we are going to work in this IDLE type of IDE, and this is the GUI toolkit, and this was developed using Kinter. It has two modes actually, interactive mode and the development mode, and further in the next sessions we will learn how to design and develop the applications both in interactive and development mode. So in this interactive mode, that is a shell mode, it's like a command prompt where you will be executing and running the commands, and with respect to the development mode, you can save the file in a separate window, and you can save it as .py, which is an extension of Python, and you will be running. So this IDLE, generally the IDLE format would look like this. The Python's IDE is Python GUI, which is built using Kinter. Looks like this, and this is the shell, and this is the command prompt that you will be visualizing here. Here whatever you are printing, so just if I want to print a hello world, you will be just using a statement called print statement, and inside the bracket whatever you want to type, you will be typing it either in the double quotes or single quotes, which is displayed in the form of a string format. And similarly in the Mac Python 3.3 also, or on Ubuntu also, you can easily download IDLE and you can work in this interactive shell mode. Now, expression. What is an expression? Expression is nothing but a combination of operators and operands. So when you look into C programming language, if I want to execute a program or if I want to perform addition or subtraction, you have to all the way start with hash include statements, main program. You have to declare the variables, assign the values, and then start by running the program. But Python is so beautiful, such a beautiful type of provides very beautiful shell programming concepts where you can directly type the statements whatever you want in an interactive shell mode. So as one example we can see is the print statement. Just by giving print hello world, you will be able to now when you are dealing with an expression. So if you want to execute an expression 2 plus 3 minus 5, 6 plus 4 minus 6, something like that, you can directly give in this interactive shell mode and the result will be automatically interpreted in the next line as soon as you press enter. So as you see one more example where you will be performing C is equal to A plus B. So if you just compare the same language in some traditional C, C++, Java, then you have to write a long length of codes when you are executing this type of statements. So see, Python makes it very simple by directly allowing to enter these type of expressions in the interactive shell mode. So now I am assigning the values directly, and in the next line I will be performing an expression where C is equal to A plus B. So whatever the addition is happening, that will be assigned to a variable called C, and that output will be you can just give as a C, or you can also type it as print C, which displays the output of the statement. No need to just write print statement for anything. Just give a variable and press enter. The value of that variable assigned will be displayed in the shell. Now let's come to talk about math operators. So there are, as you see in other languages, arithmetic, bitwise, logical, relational, all operators do exist in Python programming language. So here we will be dealing with the arithmetic operators, which are called math operators, and the table determines or identifies the type of operators along with the precedence. So all these operators are executed, or it will be evaluated from left to right. So that is called associativity. So we will see one by one the type of operators, and we know that the basic operators like plus is for addition, minus is for subtraction, and when you go for star is for multiplication, and hash, that is slash is for division. So we have learnt in all the programming language. So the one exception with division operation is this division operation in Python programming will evaluate to floating point division. As you can see here, 22/8. So it will give the results and evaluates it with 2.75, which gives a floating point division. So the same division, we have it in a different variation, that is double slash, which evaluates to integer division. So after evaluating to integer division, it gives the result of the quotient in the form of floored quotient. So all of you would have learned by now what is the floor function. So the floor function is the nearest integer value to that number. So when you say that 22/8, the nearest and the less than that value. So that is 22/8 would be 2. It will not go to the next integer. The nearest lowest integer will be 2. It will be evaluated. And all of us know about the modulus operator, which gives the remainder of the division. And here you can apply it for integer type of operation, or it can be applied for floating point division as well. And another concept of math operator is exponent. If I want to calculate something exponential in the power function, so then double star operator will evaluate. So when I say 2 double star 3, 2 to the power of 3, which is equivalent to 8. So as we know, star is evaluated to multiplication and double star is evaluated to exponential, evaluated as an exponential operator, and the table determines on what priority the operators are evaluated, and among this all, the parenthesis would take the highest priority over all these math operators, and you can see this here. The parenthesis comes first, exponential operator, then star, slash, modulus and double slash are having equal precedence and they will be evaluated from left to right, and then comes the plus and minus, which is also evaluated from left to right. You can see few examples of evaluating the expression. So 2 to the the second example, see, and one more thing is, if you can see the first number here, the first number is too long. We don't have anything like the concept of long integer, short integer, or say a normal integer. So there is no limit to the integer values that you are giving, and this will evaluate until whatever the memory that is being under this type of operating system as per the NIC requirement. So the value will be stored, and 2 to the power 2 star star 8 would determine 2 to the power of 8. And as I have mentioned, 223 slash, which gives floating point division, and the same 23 double slash 7 would be evaluating to the nearest float integer value, that is 3. And modulus operator is giving the remainder of the division. And you can also evaluate the expression as per the precedence and associativity value. Okay, so 5 minus 1, 7 plus 1. So the inner parenthesis would be evaluated. The inner parenthesis would be evaluated first, then comes the slash and star, which is evaluated from left to right, and then addition and subtraction will be done. But since the parentheses are given within this, so 7 plus 1 will be evaluated first, then 3 minus 1, and it goes on. So I hope you would have understood the evaluating of the expression. So we will next move on to the features of Python programming. In the last session, we already have discussed the various features of Python. It is a high level, it's a combination of procedure oriented, object oriented language, and it supports GUI features, and it is a portable language, dynamically typed language, and it is an interpreted language, and it is also an integration of C, C++, and many other modular programming language and procedure and object oriented programming language. And here there is no need to compile, and it is very easier to debug and code. So you can, as you go on, you can write any number of features and you can discuss with that, and the same thing have been already discussed in the previous session. So now let's move on to the data types. So the data types determine what type of data a variable can store. Here there are primitive and non-primitive data types. So among that primitive data types are integer, float, strings, Boolean, and there is one more data type called complex data type. And the non-primitive data types are arrays, list, tuples, dictionary, set, and files. And in our VTU syllabus, we will be only dealing with the data structures like list, tuples, dictionary, and files. And with respect to primitive data types, we are not specifically mentioning the keywords such as int, float, or string or boolean. So whenever you write a variable and you assign a value, automatically the type of value that we assign will be determined as a data type. When I assign a is equal to 12, a will become an integer. If I assign a is equal to 12.5, it will be assigned to a float. When I assign a is equal to double quotes hello, so then the data type of a would become string data types. So it determines the type of data based on a variable and a value. So when you can see here as an example, when I assign a variable a is equal to 5 here, and you try to type and you want to know what type of variable it is, then you have a predefined function called the type of a. So it determines what type of data type a is holding on. So this type is class int. So there is no declaration like int, float as such. Again I am repeating. So and there is no limitation for storing a value of an integer, and it always depends on your memory of your operating system. So then comes floating point numbers. A floating point number is anything with the decimal along with the fractional part, and here most of the Python applications accept 64-bit double precision values, and here the maximum value it can take is 1.8 into 10 to the power of 308. So if you can just assign a variable with a floating point value and try to display the type of that variable, it will give it as class float. And you can see one such example here. Now whenever we give integers are always floating point are always represented in the form of mantissa, e and exponent. So when you give 1.79 E308, so it will be converted in the form as per the format with where Python programming languages are interpreted. 1.79 E plus 308. But if you can see, the maximum value as we have discussed is 1.8 into 10 to the power of 308. But if the same value is assigned or try to assign to a variable or try to use, then it will display it as infinity, because the maximum value that you can take is lesser than that number. If you take exact value, then it would display it as infinity. Now, when you come to a string data type, strings or the string literals are always delimited using single quotes, double quotes, or you can also use triple quotes. So anything is valid, and whenever you use this print function, you can just use double, triple, or just assign a value directly. And if you want to know the type of that string type, then you can give type and you can mention a string here, and that would display the type of that value that you have assigned would be of string type. So now I had also told you about another data type that you will be learning is complex numbers. So we know that complex numbers include the real part, the imaginary part, and it will be having a j value that is suffixed with j. So 2 plus 3j. When you are evaluating, when you want to find out the roots of a quadratic equation, or if you want to evaluate some mathematical implementation of something like exponential or something where you are designing some electronic circuits or electromagnetic induction related concepts, then the complex numbers would help you. In that case, they have designed a special data type in Python programming, so which will be represented in the form of real part, that is 2 plus 3j. J is the suffix that we will be using, and if you type that value with the type function, you will know what data type that would be used. So now you can see what are the literals that these data types would take: integer, any sort of whole number, both positive and negative, floating point along with the fractional part. Strings can be single quote, double quotes, and triple quotes, and all these string data type will be stored in the memory in the form of Unicode. It's not ASCII code, it is a Unicode character. And when you talk about the non-primitive data structures, lists are the sequence of objects that are stored in the big brackets. And similarly, tuples, if you see tuples, the tuples are also sequence of objects. It can be of any data type, and it will be stored, or it will be delimited, or you can say they are a set of objects which is enclosed in parentheses. Sets are also but an ordered collection. What is the difference between list and set? Is it is a ordered sequence of object, but here sets are a it is enclosed within the flower braces, and this is unordered sequence. And as you know, Boolean data types will always have a value which indicates true or false. And whenever you assign a variable with Boolean data types, it will always print the value with true or false, but never as 1 or 0. So that is one small difference with other programming language. And you have one more concept called dictionaries that you will be learning in the next upcoming sessions. So dictionary is nothing but an unordered key value pair, a key variable which is assigned to a specific value, and this is called dictionary, which has key value pair. So the next concept is string concatenation and replication. We already have studied with this concatenation concept. So the plus operator is, whenever the plus operator is used with the strings, then it is called string concatenation. When the same plus is used with some integer or floating point variables, then it performs addition of the operation. But if the same plus is used with the strings, then it is called string concatenation. It is going to join or concatenate two string values. So remember, whenever you are giving this string concatenation, it should be with string and string only. It cannot be done with any other data types. So this is one such example where S1 is assigned with the value welcome, S2 is assigned with value 2, S3 is assigned with value Python. So now if I am concatenating these two, all the three strings, then plus operator comes in between. Since we need to give space, we have also used just a empty double quotes along with one space, which is going to print the output as welcome to Python. So remember, when I say S is equal to 1 plus 2, you are doing concatenation, it's not concatenation. When you are doing with integers, it will do addition. So if the same 1 and 2 is enclosed with single quotes or double quotes, that will get converted into strings and it will concatenate as a string type. And one more type of operation on string is multiplication operation. So this multiplication operation, that is star, the star is considered as a replication operation. So this is one such operation, that is string replication. It is nothing but you are going to repeat whatever the string that you have assigned in multiple times. So what is the syntax of replication? So the replication comes with the string multiplied with integer. So remember, always it should be one variable should be of string type and another variable should be of integer type. You can just reshuffle the syntax, string with integer or integer with string. So for example, you are using here S1 is Python, you are multiplying S1 into 3, that is a string with integer. So then it replicates that Python thrice. So remember, whenever you are doing string concatenation, it will be between two strings. Whenever I am doing replication, it should be between a string and an integer. So if I try this example, that is Alice replicated with Bob, then the Python interpreter shell will throw an error because you cannot multiply a non-int of type string, because one variable that you will be passing should always be an integer. And here, and one more thing, so we are passing this replication operation with a string along with the floating point here. So that is also not possible. It will not automatically convert the floating point variable into integer. It should be mandatorily done only with integer as well as the string. And you can see all these three set of examples where the at is multiplied or replicated some 5 times. ABC is multiplicated or replicated twice, and 5, even though 5 is an integer, since it is inside the double quotes and we are replicating it for 8 times. So this is called string replication. Now let's move on to the storage concept. So whenever you assign a variable, so a value will be assigned by using assignment statements. What is the variable? Anything, any value that can be stored in a computer memory should have something that can have it in the memory. So for that sake, you need to have a variable and assign with assignment operator, and then you will be assigning a value. It can be of any data type. And the same thing, the same concept that you have studied in C, C++ or Java, the same would be applicable to variables. And the rules for defining a variable also says that first character should be always a letter, and it cannot have a digit, and you can also use one special character called underscore, and in between there will be no space and no other special characters can be used, and it cannot begin with a number or a digit, what you can say, and it is case sensitive. So whether you declaring with capital B or small b, both are a different, considered as a different variable in the memory. So this is about storing the values in a variable. You can also see a set of valid and invalid variables, and in this here hyphen is used, there is some space, and the first character will be number, and here they are using dollar as a special character, and here even though you are assigning, this would become this would become a special character. This is not a variable. You can assign it as a value but not as a variable with single or double quotes. So let's go to the first program. The first program can be done in the development mode, or you can also run it in interactive shell mode, and you have to save the file with .py extension, and you can type print statement, assign a value to a variable, and to run or execute the program you will be using the run module, or you can also press F5 key to run the statement when you are using a development mode, that is creating a new window and saving the file. Then you have to go on with all these process. If you are running in the interactive shell mode, then you don't need to save any sort of file. It will be just a session that you have opened, and it will be updating the values thereon. We have seen the comments. What is the purpose of using comments? It helps in documentation purpose, and as a developer everyone should have practice or habit of writing the comments for the code that you develop. So there are two types of comments. One is single line comment and another one is multi-line comment. And single line comments can be written using hash. Hash is a symbol that is used to determine a single line comment. If you want to type a multi-line comments, then you will be using triple quotes. So triple quotes are represented for multiple line type of comments. So we will be learning few functions which we will be using in our programming language, the common functions. So when you talk about a print function, you can use this print function to display some value in the value on the screen. See, remember, whenever I am using this print function would be considering it as an integer or string value. It depends on what the syntax that you will be using. So generally by default the print function would take the numbers or strings or any data type, and if you are printing some string value, then it should be using either single quotes, double quotes or triple quotes, as I said. And you can see this print statement. If I want to print the two different variables, two different values or anything, so then you will be separating, if you will be using comma as an operator. So whenever I use comma, so then it will be considered as two different values, and you have one parameter, that is SEP, the separator. What is the separator that you are using? Whether you are using comma as a separator, whether you are using any other special symbol as a separator, you can enclose that in double quotes or single quotes. Since I am using a type called none, it means those two are different words. So there is no need. If you want to separate it, print it in a new line, then you have to use a separator as a /n, okay, or end L. End L is a new line now word. Now, if you can observe here, I will not be able to show you executing the program. Print hello world. Hello is a one string value and this is one string value, and those two are two different words. So it is printing. But if the same print hello world is separated by the plus operator, then it will be the concatenation of two strings. Comma represents the two different values or variables, but whenever you are using a plus symbol, then it is called concatenation. And remember, the concatenation of a string or a concatenation should happen only with the string values. You can see one error message here. I am trying to concatenate a string, that is I am, plus this is an integer value, and you are trying to concatenate with another string, which is impossible because the concatenation can never happen with an integer and a string. So it is, if you want to print it, if you want to rectify this error, then 29 should be enclosed in single quotes. But if the same print statement, if I use 29 comma hello, then the Python interpreter do not throw any error because you are not concatenating anything here, you are just trying to print the values. But if instead of comma, if you are using a plus as a symbol, then the Python interpreter will throw an error saying you cannot concatenate with an integer object. So that is a very important thing to note when you are using print function. So the next function is, okay, you can see the various examples of different data types with respect to print function. So if you want to print an integer, floating point, complex number, boolean type, remember, so when you print a boolean type, it will not convert that into either 1 or 0. It will display it as the same true value with where T is caps, or in false, F is caps. Okay, so you cannot change the case sensitivity of the true or false value. And here you can see the list type, tuple type. This is a set where it is an unordered sequence of data, and here you can see a string display of the value. So the next function that you will be learning is length. So what is length function? If I want to calculate the length of a string or a length of a variable of that particular type, so it is only string. It cannot evaluate, it cannot find a length function for any other data type. So when I assign a variable with some string, so if I want to count the number of characters along with space, so if you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the 9 is the length of this because there are two spaces. One is at the initial and another one is at the middle of these two numbers. And similarly, you can also write the length function inside the print statement and call this, since it is a function, you can write in the print statement and call this, and this example is throwing an error. So what does it indicate? You are concatenating a string, but in between you can find one integer value which does not evaluate the length function. Length is applicable only to a string value. So when you are concatenating, it should be also enclosed in single or double quotes. Then this error can be rectified. So another is input function. So this input function is to take the input from the user. So it may be of any type, and whatever the type you are inputting, that value should be copied to a variable which takes that value. Okay. So when I call the input function, it pauses the program execution to allow the user the input until the user inputs and press enter key. So it will be in the blinking stage, and when you print that variable, the value will be printed. So you can just write an empty function or call, or you can also write some statement which would be user friendly to know what input you are going to supposed to take. So you can also mention these are the two, and if you just try to display name, since it is in an interactive shell mode, no need of having print statement, directly you can print the name value. So the rest functions are a few more functions, that is string, int, float and round functions. So here the string function, say suppose I have taken an input of an integer value, I want to convert that into string. So just you need to take str of 29. So remember, whenever you are taking this input function, it will always read the values that you are taking input as a string type. Even you give 29 or a number, it will always consider and store that 29 or any number in a string type. So now if I want to perform addition of two numbers while taking the input from the user, then you have to convert that value into string type. Or if you want to concatenate, you can convert into string type. And if you have integer, you have one more predefined function called int function. So if I want to convert that string type into integer, so you can just write to input a number a is equal to int function of input. So since input function will take the string type, so whenever I use int function, it will automatically convert the string to an integer. And similar to that, you have float function which converts string or integer to float, and you have round function which takes the estimated value of a integer variable or floating point variable that you will be using. So if you can see here, float of false, we are trying to do typecasting here. So false is a boolean type, and when you just convert this boolean type to float, and it would display it as 0.0 since false is 0. And here you have str of 29. Now 29 is an integer, it would get converted into string 29. And str of 0, 0 is a number, it will get converted into string type. And similarly, you can convert anything to a string type, int type or float type. But there is one small variation here. So when you say float of a string, it means you can convert a floating point value. You can convert any number to a floating point value, but you can never convert a string to a float, or you can never convert int of a string. So if I give 10, since 10 is a string type, you cannot convert this into floating point. But when you talk about C or C++ language, it will convert it to ASCII code and it will do. But here it never happens like that. So it will throw an error whenever you are trying to convert a string type into integer or float. It's just, you can see here, you can see the number can be converted into int type or float, but you cannot take a string as an input to convert. So you can see some type of errors that comes. A complex data type cannot be converted into integer, and similarly floating point type cannot. Complex is a complex type. It is one set of individual type that can never be converted, and you are trying to convert a string to integer, which is impossible. So it will throw an error, invalid literal for integer function. And here you are trying to convert int of 10.5, but the problem is here since it is in the single quotes, it will be considered as a string, and hence we cannot convert that into integer type. So you should be very careful when you are trying to do typecasting of values. So this is the Boolean type, the last Boolean type, which is evaluated to either true or false. If you initialize, make sure that first character is in the capital letter. If you initialize a Boolean value to a variable, the same value true will be displayed, and you cannot say true is equal to 1 because true is already a keyword and it is already assigned with true. So you cannot re-initialize the value and try to say. And here, if you can see here, this is a relational expression. You are trying to compare whether true value is equal to 1. Yes. So it is displaying true statement. So false is equal to 0. Yes. This is an evaluation of relational expression. So it will evaluate to true or false. So next comes comparison operators. Comparison operators are nothing but relational operators. So we use relational operators to compare the two values and evaluate either to true or false. So it will, when you can see here, the less than, there are 6 types of comparison operators: less than, greater than, lesser than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and not equal to. So these are the set of examples. So remember, whenever you are trying to evaluate a relational expression, it will always result to either true or false. It will not give any other value as an output. Is dog not equal to cat? Yes, they are not equal to cat, because this will be considered as a string, and based on the Unicode characters, the values will be evaluated. So thank you. So let's in the next session we will move on and learn many other conceptuals of Python programming language.